Agit Kabayel defeats Dereck Chisora on a 12-round majority decision to retain his European heavyweight title. Now, first of all, let me address the scores. This was an Eddie Hearn show. Dereck Chisora is a newly signed Eddie Hearn fighter. Did that have anything to do with the way the scores played out? That's just a question. Because personally, I felt like Kabayel won it by several rounds. I didn't think it was as close as at least one of the judges had it. I thought Kabayel won it relatively comfortably. I'm not saying it wasn't a competitive fight, it was, but I definitely had Kabayel winning. Now, in terms of the performances of both men, Kabayel boxed smartly and effectively without being overly impressive or spectacular. He just did a competent job of exploiting Dereck Chisora's slow feet, his low work rate, and his listlessness. So, yeah, Caballero did a good job without looking spectacular or turning any heads or anything like that. As for Chisora, I realized from the Dillian Whyte fight that Chisora is a guy who needs beef with his opponent to actually get a good performance out of himself. And this even goes back to Dereck Chisora's early career. I remember when he fought Paul Butlin, and he actually bit Paul Butlin during the fight. And years later, when he was asked about why he did it, he said, because I got bored in the fight, so I bit him. And that sounds crazy to us. It is crazy, but this is how Dereck Chisora's mind works for whatever reason. If he doesn't have some kind of personal gripe with his opponent, he'll try and manufacture one. If he can't manufacture one, then you need to worry that he's not really going to produce a very good performance. You know, you go back and look at his best performances. The Helenius fight. He tried to kiss Helenius, whatever it was at the weigh-in. It turned into a fracas before the fight took place. He was fired up for that fight. He had beef with Helenius. He went in there and put on a good performance. Vitaly Klitschko, same thing. He slapped him. You know, he worked himself up into a frenzy for that fight. And also, not just the fact that he needs beef, he needs to feel a threat. Again, he's one of those kind of fighters that needs to feel threatened by his opponent before he can get his best performance out. And even against Dillian Whyte, you know, he felt threatened. He felt that there was beef there. He got his blood pumping, and it brought out one of the better performances of Dereck Chisora against Dillian Whyte. But here against Agit Kabayel, Chisora just wasn't switched on. There wasn't any beef there. He probably didn't feel particularly threatened by Kabayel. In fact, judging by his pre-fight interviews, he really didn't. So this was the problem, and this is probably why he didn't produce a very good performance, because Dereck Chisora has performed a lot better than that. He was a lot better in the Dillian Whyte fight than he was against Kabayel. There was far more fire in his belly against Dillian Whyte. So, yeah, Chisora drops to 27-8 now. 8 losses he's had so far in his career. It's getting to the point where he's almost at journeyman level. Some people probably say he is at journeyman level now, but yeah, he's teetering on the border of fringe contender / journeyman now. So, and also, the Dillian Whyte fight is fading away, the rematch, because even though Dillian Whyte didn't impress in the Robert Helenius fight, at least he won. You know, it's one thing to not impress and still win, and another thing to not impress and lose. You know, Dillian Whyte has had several fights where he didn't really impress, but he still walked away with a W. That's the most important thing. Getting the result, however, by any means, whether it's ugly, you know, however you do it, as long as you get the W. Dillian Whyte's been doing that for all of his fights other than the Anthony Joshua fight. Dereck Chisora hasn't been doing that. Admittedly, he's fought at a much higher level than Dillian Whyte for the most part, but still, you look at this Kabayel fight, that's really a fight you would expect Dereck Chisora, if he's on form, to be winning. But again, he's so erratic with his form that you can't rely on him to put in a good performance. So, yeah, it looks like the Dillian Whyte rematch is certainly not pay-per-view, that's for sure. I don't think it ever was pay-per-view, but Dylan White really is going to have to let go of this idea that that fight is ever going to be pay-per-view. You know, both fighters are. Especially not just because of Chisora losing, but also because Dylan White didn't look particularly impressive in beating Helenius. He got the win, he won most of the rounds, but he didn't look particularly convincing doing it, you know? He didn't look like he was setting the heavyweight scene alight by the way he dealt with Helenius. It was effective, but it was ugly, and it was pretty dull. It was sloppy. So, yeah, I'm not sure if this rematch is going to happen at this stage. Maybe it will happen down the line when both guys are really over the hill. Who knows? And it might be a fun fight at that stage. I mean, I remember when David Tua fought those fights with Monty Barrett. Those were entertaining fights when both guys were, you know, well past their best. So we might get that with Chisora and Dylan White. Who knows? But for now, it looks like they're going to have to go in different directions. Dylan White probably is going to target maybe Dominic Brazil, who got a win over Eric Molina on the weekend. And Dereck Chisora, I don't know. I really don't know where he goes from here. He needs to target. He needs to understand in himself that he requires beef. He requires a threat to get the best out of himself. So he's going to have to try and target maybe up-and-coming prospects. You know, guys who he thinks are dangerous and just take a risk against them. But again, Dereck Chisora is a guy who's always talking about money. So if them prospects are not bringing the right kind of money, he's probably not going to want to take those fights. I don't know. Do you guys even care where Chisora goes at this point in his career? Are you interested in the story? I've always been a fan of Dereck Chisora, the character, because he's so bizarre. He's such a strange man that he's just entertaining to watch in interviews, you know, and press conferences and whatnot. But as a fighter, yeah, he puts his heart on his sleeve and whatnot. When he's actually fired up, he's a guy that provides reasonable entertainment. But I can't say I'd miss him that much as a fighter if he was to retire tomorrow. I'd probably miss him more as a character. So anyway, let me know how you feel in the comment section below. What do you think about Kabayel? How far can he go? European champion at the moment. A Turkish fighter. Young guy. Looks like he could lose quite a bit of weight himself. But for a guy of those kind of dimensions, carrying that kind of poundage, he moved quite well. He's certainly not the biggest heavyweight in terms of height and reach and whatnot. So that probably will be an issue the further he goes up. Yeah, let me know what you think of Kabayel. It's the first time I've ever seen him, so I can't really talk about him too much because, you know, I'm not speaking from experience of watching the guy a lot. So yeah, let me know what you think about Kabayel. How far can he go? How impressed were you with him? Who would you like to see him fight next? And what's next for Dereck Chisora? Where does he go from here? Drop it all in the comment section, people. It's happening. I'm out.